Good evening, you're about to listen to the Odd Pod. We don't know why, however we are grateful you chose to. We do wish to inform you that the views, opinions and overall morality do not necessarily reflect those of the station, sponsors or musical entities. If you should choose to continue, and we sincerely hope that you do, just know, we try to advise you against these actions and we are not responsible for any damage done to your sanity, morals or ideals. Thank you. Here comes that terrible siren.
Portions of the day's programming are reproduced by means of electrical transcriptions or tape recordings.
And now, broadcasting from the heart of Metro Detroit, you're listening to the Odd Pod.
Double the D's for double the fun.
We'll do it live! Fuck it!
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. How are you this evening? It's that time again. It's that one show a month where I decide that I want to go alone and I want to air some grievances. I don't know. I don't know how to really describe this. These are just some things over the course of the last month or since the last time we did this that have gotten under my skin and I wanted to be able to talk about unfettered. I do want to thank you for joining us this evening. You are listening to the Odd Pod on tapdetroit.com, and I want to say hello to our German and Russian listeners. Hello. You are greatly appreciated. I also would like to say hello to Hootis, who is in the chat room. How are you doing tonight, Hootis? Now, I know that there's a little bit of a delay between what you hear and what I say, or vice versa, so I'll keep rolling. It's going to be a show that's a little all over the place, I guess, tonight, because there's a wide array of topics that is slated for tonight. But first and foremost, can it please stop fucking raining? Please. I'm done. I'm good. The plants are good. The trees are good. The only thing that isn't good is the infrastructure. And, that's why we want it to stop raining. Detroit is flooding again, as are other parts of the Wayne County area that I happen to live within, and other counties in the state of Michigan, lower southeast. Just stop it. Stop with the rain already. We get it. Use a wet bitch. Let's move on. But yeah, so there's a lot of people that are, struggling right now and worried because, they flooded the last time and it's pretty much rained since I woke up to, I think it was raining already. I woke up at around, 9:30, 10 o'clock this morning, and it is steadily rained all day, pouring at times and trickling in at others. It was so bad that the president decided to stop by Michigan and declare a state of emergency from weather-related terrorists. I guess. I don't know. I have no idea. I think Mother Nature was branded a terrorist at this point. I think that's what happened. I have no clue. But it's good for the people that are going to need help and relief to repair and replace, because there's a lot of people that were caught off guard. This isn't something that normally happens here. It's once in a great while, and the city of Detroit itself is in real bad shape because 94 and the Lodge are flooded again. and it is showing severe signs that the infrastructure for downtown definitely needs some updating. All right, so I started the show a little bit early today, sort of. I connected to the server early, and I'm going to do that from here on out. I'm going to play, I don't know, a handful of songs, 3 or 4. I guess it's considered mainstream music. It's going to be shit that I like. It won't be in the podcast, and it won't be in the Patreon version. It is simply just to give me a buffer time so I'm not scrambling at the last minute trying to get connected to the server for whatever reason. Usually when I stop the auto DJ, there is a delay, and there's a small window between that delay and when the auto DJ automatically kicks back in. Because if there's silence on the network for too long, Planky has it set up that the auto DJ recognizes, or the server recognizes that silent and engages the auto DJ. And I have a small window of time between when I stop and the server actually stops and when the silence detector will kick in. And I have to try and slide into that window, and it's a challenge sometimes. So I figured this way, I'll preload some music beforehand, and that way I can just sit here and keep an eye on the time, and at 8 o'clock I can just shift to the disclaimer and the intro. So if you want to hear whatever I decide to play, start hitting the network at 7:45, because I'm going to probably have about 15 minutes of wiggle room that I'm going to give myself. So there's that. New merch up at the merch shop. It's the 3 heads off to the side. Go check that out if you want. There's a link on pretty much everything I run, whether it's the Facebook page or the Instagram account or the TikTok, or there's a way to get to it. And if you can't find it and you want to, by all means, send the Odd Pod page a message and we'll help you out. You can go to tapdetroit.com/the Odd Pod, and there's a button for our merch right there as well. I think that covers the important stuff, paying the bills. As always, if you're listening and you enjoy the content, by all means, you can go to patreon.com/the Odd Pod, and you can become a patron. It's $5 a month, and you get access to the archive of full episodes. The funsize is posted on all podcast platforms and YouTube. The funsize is just the first hour of the podcast, or the first hour of the show, in podcast form. And we've changed our posting schedule. So from here on out, the Patreon subscribers will get the full episode Saturday, and the funsize version goes up Sundays. So the funsize version will be available on YouTube first, and then all podcasting platforms later that day. I think that's everything. Yeah, that's all the bills and business I had to cover. Hootis said he's doing well, and I'm happy to hear that. Thank you again for joining us, Hootis. And again, as I stated, our listeners in Germany and Russia and now France. France has joined the party. Hello, France. You guys know how this goes. There's a bunch of stuff that's been bugging me. And it's stuff that has me concerned, that I feel should be talked about. And sometimes I don't necessarily mind the banter and the back and forth with my co-hosts or my guests or anything like that. I love it. I honestly do. But there are some times where I would prefer to be able to just express myself. And if you guys really have something to say about anything that I've said, you can, hit the comments section, hit our email, theoddpod@gmail.com. I've also got a TikTok account set up, and I just opened the Q&A section for TikTok. You can find me on TikTok at MyRadioIsOdd. That's also my Twitter handle as well. And I believe it's my Instagram account. We do have an Instagram account for the Odd Pod, but I haven't been able to think of anything that I need to put up there yet. So I'm just kind of in limbo. I'll figure it out, though. Anyways, but yeah, there's been a few things this week that have come up that I felt drawn to talk about. First and foremost, Wells Fargo and the shenanigans that they're pulling right now. So for those of you that don't know, Wells Fargo last year ended mortgage lending. And now this year, after the pandemic, they have decided that they are going to end all personal lines of credit. Now, personal lines of credit means credit to people like you and me. And they're going to close all those accounts on the people that have them, which is going to cause a huge problem for those people with their credit ratings. And what worries me is what happens if the other big banks, because there's like four of them. There's Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citibank, and Chase. If those other large banks decide to follow suit, that is a very dangerous slippery slope, because we have been put into a position where we need credit to do damn near anything important in our life. If you want to buy a car, you got to have good credit to get a decent car. If you want to buy a house, you got to have good credit to get a loan to get that house. They do credit checks on your job. Like if you're trying to find employment, they do credit checks on the employees to see if they're able to hire them. Like there's a lot of things that go into your credit score that rely on your credit score that I don't know if a lot of people are aware of, or they've just grown accustomed to it being okay. So let me read the article here. This comes from CNBC, but I mean, you can go to any news site, whether it's NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox News. You can go to RN or any of the other independent outlets that you might trust, and they will have a story about this. I recommend looking at several of them so you get the full scope of what's going on, because of course I understand that depending on the news source that you're reading from, there is a skew or a bias based on who owns said news outlet. The bank is shutting down all existing personal lines of credit in the coming weeks, and no longer offers the product, according to customer letters received by CNBC. The revolving credit lines, which typically let users borrow $3,000 to $100,000, were pitched as a way to consolidate higher interest credit card debt, pay for home renovations, and avoid overdraft fees on linked checking accounts. Wells Fargo warned customers the account closures may have an impact on your credit score, according to a frequently asked questions segment of the letter. So this comes after one of the higher-ups of Wells Fargo was complaining that they had to take a $2.7 million pay cut last year because of the pandemic and people not being able to pay their credit card or their credit debt, and that all of the forgiveness and stuff that was passed down from the government severely hurt their bottom line. So he couldn't get, I believe it was even a bonus. I believe it was $2.7 million bonus, but I could be wrong. I know it was $2.7 million that he lost last year because of the pandemic. And so the solution Wells Fargo came up with is to fuck all of their consumers. This says the CEO has been forced to make difficult decisions during the coronavirus pandemic, offloading assets and deposits and stepping back from some products because of limitations imposed by the Federal Reserve. In 2008, the Fed barred Wells Fargo from growing its balance sheet until it fixes compliance shortcomings revealed by the bank's fake accounts scandal. The asset cap has also ultimately cost the bank billions of dollars in lost earnings, and based on the balance sheet growth of rivals including JP Morgan Chase and Bank of America over the past 3 years. It has also affected Wells Fargo's customers. Last year, the lenders told staff it was halting all new home equity lines of credit. Months later, the bank also withdrew from a segment of the auto lending business. With its latest move, Wells Fargo warned customers that the account closures may have an impact on your credit score. No fucking shit. Another part of the frequently asked questions asserted that the account closures couldn't be reviewed or reversed. We apologize for the inconvenience that this line of credit closure will cause, the bank said. The account closure is final. So, that means if they shut down your line of credit and they wreck your credit rating, if and when they decide to offer consumer credit lines of credit again, you will have to start at square one again, and they can offer you an interest rate now based on your lower credit score, which means you'll have a higher interest rate because your credit score is lower, if my understanding of how credit and lending works. Wells Fargo didn't directly answer questions as to what role, if any, the Fed asset cap played in the latest move. The bank gave this statement: in an effort to simplify our product offerings, we've made the decision to no longer offer personal lines of credit, as we feel we can better meet the borrowing needs of our customers through credit card and personal loan products. Customers have been given a 60-day notice that their accounts will be shuttered, and the remaining balances will require regular minimum payments at a fixed rate, according to the statement. When it was offered, the credit lines had variable interest rates ranging from 9.5% to 21%. The move is a strange one given the banking industry's need to boost loan growth. After a burst of commercial lending during the early days of the pandemic, the loan growth has been hard to muster. Corporations have used money raised in stock and debt issuances to retire bank credit lines, and consumers stuck at home had fewer reasons to use credit cards. In fact, the last year, big banks experienced the first aggregated drop in loans in more than a decade, according to Barclays Bank analysts. One of the 4 largest U.S. banks, Wells Fargo, saw the worst decline. After banks saw that borrowers held up far better than they had initially feared, the industry recently began marketing new credit cards with large sign-on bonuses in an effort to boost lending. Now, as I stated, Wells Fargo is one of the bigger banks. I think it's Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, Bank of America, and then Citibank. Like, those are the 4 big ones that I know of. And Wells Fargo, I think, is like in the top 2. They've been around forever. There's a lot of people that this is going to hurt. There's a lot of people that this is going to affect. And I don't see a lot about this being posted on any of the social media feeds that I'm on, which really surprises me. Like, either people I know just don't bank with Wells Fargo, which is not surprising because they are one of the higher up banks, and Wells Fargo in my head was always for the richer people, I guess. The upper middle class would probably have a Wells Fargo account. Same with Chase, because people like me, I'm at a credit union. You know, they don't charge me fees for no reason. They don't charge me to access my own money. You know, I don't have to keep a minimum balance in my bank account. You know, I can do what I need to do to live. And, you know, they offer loans and stuff too, but I've never had a reason to take one out. But we have a society that is built on the importance of credit. You got to have good credit. You got to make sure that you have good credit. You know, you can't do anything without good credit. And I don't think it's going to tank people's credit, but it's definitely going to take a hit if you're already riding that line of good to fair and you're in the good. This could knock you down into fair and make you have to pay more for no reason, like through no fault of your own other than just backing the wrong horse. You know, and that means that those that have it currently, they said they're going to have to make at minimum payments to pay off whatever's left. So, like, if you had a scheduled plan set up for paying off whatever your credit, say you had, you know, $20,000 in credit that you needed to pay off, and you had a schedule. Well, that schedule has now changed, and they can charge you when and where to pay it off. I sense a lot of bad things on the horizon, people. Not just for Americans, but us as a world of people. I read something today, and I'll dig further into it later, but I'll give you the meat and potatoes of it. So apparently in the 70s, 1973, there was a computer that ran a program called World One. And what that program was designed to do versus what it did are two different things. What it did is it created a model, simulation, data set for how long we'll survive as a society. This was not the initial intent of said program. World One, MIT 73. There we go. Let me see. So, Australian media, this is why it has picked back up, is Australian media was covering it recently, and it was originally created by computer pioneer Jay Forrester, who was commissioned by the Club of Rome to model how well the world could sustain its growth. The Club of Rome is an organization comprised of thinkers, was comprised of thinkers, former world heads of state, scientists, UN bureaucrats, and more, with the mission to promote the understanding of the global changes facing humanity and to propose solutions through scientific analysis, communication, and advocacy. What World One showed was that by 2040, there would be a global collapse if the expansion of population and industry was to continue at the current levels. In fact, in 2020, the first milestone envisioned by World One was that quality of life was supposed to drop dramatically. Around 2020, the condition of the planet becomes highly critical. If we do nothing about it, the quality of life goes down to zero. Pollution becomes so serious it will start to kill people, which in turn will cause the population to diminish, lower than it was in the 1900s. Early 1900s, by the way. At this stage, around 2040 to 2050, civilized life as we know it on this planet will cease to exist. Now, there have been tons and tons of end of the world proclamations over the course of our history. But World One seems to be one of them that was hitting the high notes the whole way through. And I would say that in 2020, we definitely had the beginning of a diminishing quality of life. It actually started long before that, but 2020 seemed to be when everybody finally fucking noticed it. And now you have individuals that are tired of the way things are, fighting to try to make changes to make things better. And I don't know how successful they're going to be. You can clearly see that the pushback is there, and that it seems like those in charge of things don't really want it to get better for anyone other than them. Which is a mindset that I don't necessarily understand, because there comes a point where you need to ensure that your consumer base can afford your product. Otherwise, are you just building a product for yourselves at the top 1%? So all this pushback is strange to me. Yeah, I've said this before. I don't know if I've said it on air, but I definitely feel like I'm in the wrong reality sometimes. Like, because I look around and nothing makes sense to me. Nothing, like, in my head, there's a way and an order that things should be done. And then what I see in the world is counterintuitive to what my brain and logic tells me is the path. And there are a lot of people that share similar or some of my views. There are a lot of people out there, though, that don't. And more so that don't than do. I don't know. That's a deeper topic, and we're coming up on our first break here. And we'll come back around to this, because one of the things we're going to talk about later tonight is the October 15th strike that seems to be coming up. What we're going to do right now is we're actually going to go ahead and tell you about what's coming up in the break. We have a brand new song by the Lonely Ones. It's called Getting High. We also have music from Wedge, and I believe the Chinchillionaires is what this is. It's not. Yeah, I'm right. It's the Chinchillionaires. Some of the songs here, they usually have the artist name, but for whatever reason, this one doesn't. And Ghosts in the Machine, maybe. But yeah, we're headed for a bad time, man. We really are. And I don't think that there's really anything that we can do to pump the brakes to try to even lessen the impact. You've got supply chains that are running short on purpose. You've got the cost of everything going up. Have you seen what gas is right now? You have pushback that people don't want to work for nothing anymore. And the companies aren't really jumping to fix or change that to make people want to actually come to work, because it's not just money, it's a workplace environment, it's a culture, there's a lot of things that need to change. So I think that the pandemic will be the least of our concerns, but who knows, maybe I'm wrong. All right, like I said, you're going to get the Lonely Ones, Wedge, and to the Chinchillionaires. Brand new one from the Lonely Ones, though. It's called Getting High. It's out now. We'll post a link with the show, but if you go Google the Lonely Ones, you'll get to being able to pick up the song if you want. We'll be right back.
Now it's time for the Odd Pod's Patreon shout-out. Big thanks to Justin Burnside for becoming a patron. We hope you enjoy our long, uncut and girthy episodes until you're fully satisfied and left shaking from laughter. For everyone else, you can join our Patreon too. Just head to patreon.com/theoddpod. Become a patron and reap the benefits today.
911, what's your emergency? Sir, I need you to calm down.
Wiping your tears when you're coming down. There's no need to cry. You won't think about me when you get Why should I even cry? You won't think about me when you get
Are you tired of incense that stinks? Motor City Candleworks is Metro Detroit's #1 source for premium handmade incense, as well as hand sanitizer and now massage oil, with a wide array of scents inspired by Michigan cities and attractions. You're sure to find a fragrance that'll keep your love of the mitten burning all year round. Head to MotorCityCandleworks.com and order yours today. And make sure you find them on Facebook, too, for all of their upcoming sales and events. Motor City Candleworks. Michigan handmade scents that just make sense.
That smell. The kind of smelly smell.
Sunday morning, I was born with a lightning strike. My mother left that very next day. My daddy distilled the country hills, ran from the county law, left me to roll with the witches and the hay. I grew up drinking, threw up thinking, what am I gonna do? Maybe I'll go to where the good folks go to pray, but not today. Well, I'm a king snake, deep fake, crawling on my belly ache, late night, ready to roll. In a bar fight all night, bleeding in the moonlight, 30 days in the hole. I feel the whiskey coming over me, and it takes its toll. I'm a bad C, dirty D, denim jean Jesus. God bless my soul. Now me and 12 of my buddies rolled into town that night, and it didn't happen the way that butcher said. A man came over to me, pushing and shoving, drew his pistol first, but I was quicker and I shot him in the head. He fell dead, the people all fled, so it was self-defense. Now tomorrow morning they'll hang me by the neck, but I'll be back, my friends, the outlaws rise again. I'm a king snake, deep fake, crawling on my belly ache, late night ready to roll. In a bar fight all night, bleeding in the moonlight, 30 days in the hole. I feel the whiskey coming over me, and it takes its toll. I'm a bad C, dirty D, denim jean Jesus. God bless my soul.
This is your friendly neighborhood radio DJ Oddman. Just wanted to let you know that the Odd Pod has an official merch shop set up for all the oddities eager to get covered in a bit of odd. Or maybe you want to seduce your partner by slipping into something a little more odd.
Ooh la la.
Maybe you just want to wallpaper a room in your house with stickers, because we got them too.
I'm gonna need more stickers.
You can find a link on our page via Facebook or on our page over at tapdetroit.com/The Odd Pod. So show your support and love for the Odd Pod today by picking up something from our store. You know, it bothers me that cuts out right before I finish saying the word store, and I know it doesn't do that normally because I'll play that file and I don't know. I just don't. Before we dive into everything else, I do want to say that I am pleased to announce that I have renewed my partnership with a website called thefump.com. And the Fump is the Funny Music Project. And so it has a bunch of artists that do humorous, funny, and parody songs. Our friend Tom Smith is actually one of the contributing artists to the Fump. So I have been able to renew the partnership with them. I used to work with them back in the Mad World Radio days, and I have now, like I said, renewed our friendship and partnership, so I will be able to start bringing you fun and goofy songs as well. Basically, I've expanded the library for the show tenfold now. I'll still have all the music and stuff, and I'll still be looking for local and independent artists and whatnot, but this gives me a huge library to pull from. And I enjoyed enjoy the parody music. I grew up with the likes of Weird Al, and my mom introduced me to Dr. Demento and all the interesting songs and stuff that, the novelty 45s and stuff like that. I've always enjoyed those. So to be able to be working with the Fump again is a big swell of pride. For those of you, if anyone's having trouble listening for whatever reason, getting a network error through the website, I recommend clearing your cache, or you can use TuneIn, which will run in the background. It seems to be happening on phones only, but only certain phones. So it's hard to tech support a problem that is intermittent at best. So I haven't really spoke publicly about what's been going on here at the House of Odd. I've made mention to the fact that my 13-year-old niece is staying with us and whatnot, and I can't get into details really, but it did bring about the idea of a topic. I don't know for sure, so this is not whatever segue you think I might be making here is not necessarily that segue, because I don't know for sure. But this is something that we have talked about in the past, and it is something that I would like to make sure that we take time to address frequently on the show. Abusive relationships are detrimental to both parties. A lot of the times abuse stems from trauma that has not been dealt with by either party. And a lot of the times an abuser will find someone who has been abused. They seem drawn to each other. I urge any person in an abusive relationship that no matter what the cost, get out. I know everyone's like, oh, it's so easy to say get out. Get out. Even if you have to do 2 or 3 months in a shelter, it's better than whatever situation you're currently in. I am a child that grew up in, I was a child. I was a child that grew up in 2 different abusive environments. Both my biological father and my stepfather were abusive, and they were abusive in different ways. My biological father was abusive in pretty much any way that you can think of towards me, and mentally and emotionally abusive towards my mother. My stepfather was a mentally and emotional abuser. He did also physically abuse me. He liked to beat on me quite often. And my mom stuck around because she felt that being by herself with a child would be worse for me than staying. And then my brother came along and things got worse, but she still stayed for the same reason. Now, I don't know if she wasn't aware that there were resources, honestly, at that time period in the 80s, 90s, and 80s and 90s specifically. There were some resources, but it wasn't really widely available and known. A lot of the times, women would file abuse reports and then get bullied into rescinding them. And a lot of the times they just weren't believed for whatever reason. So I do want to give the National Domestic Violence Hotline number. It is 1-800-799-SAFE or 1-800-799-7233. If you or someone you know is in a situation where they are in danger, You yourself make the call. And if it's someone you know, urge them to break free. Help them break free if you so choose. I know a lot of the times people don't want to get involved. They say, it's not my house, it's not my life, I don't want to insert myself in a situation that I don't need to be in. And in some ways, I get it, you're right. But the other issue is that somebody has to help them a lot of the times. They have to have a way out. They have to have an exit strategy. They have to have a plan. They have to have someone in their corner that they know is going to help them. Otherwise, they won't ever be able to get out. And statistically, understand that most people who are in an abusive relationship, it will take them 4 or 5 times to finally get away for good. That they will sometimes, and often do, go back to the attacker. And this is because of a combination of reasons. It's hard out there by yourself, It's completely different. It's new. It's scary. And people have an innate fear of the unknown. Yes, I may be getting hit and punched every single morning when I wake up, but at least I'm used to it. I know what to expect. And, thankfully when I was a child, my mom left my biological father and she stayed gone. The only problem is my stepfather was someone that he knew. They were friends, and my mom didn't seem to have the mindset of birds of a feather often flock together. And they did. And, narcissistic, manipulative people, they put on a good show. They say all the right things. They know how to behave just enough to get you to hope and to stay. And then they always backslide back into the same behavior. There's people that you see a lot on Facebook and social media in general who are whining and boo-hooing about a situation that they might find themselves in. And you have to ask yourself, how they get into that situation. Especially if they're people you know. We see things a lot in our friendships and our interactions with other people that we just brush off. We don't want to get involved. Sometimes we see people that we hold close doing things to their children that we don't feel is right. But we often are instructed in society of, well, it's not your kid. Keep it to yourself. And I think that's a dangerous mindset to have, because it means that there's no accountability. Like, let me pose this to you. If you saw someone you know refer to a child, their child, who has a learning disability as retarded, would you say something? Would you step in? Would you raise a red flag or voice of concern or anything like that? What if you heard someone you know, a mother, screaming at their child and swearing and cursing and calling them names that most people wouldn't even call adults. Would you step in? Would you say something? Would you call somebody? It's a hard question to answer because a lot of us don't know what we do in that given situation. You know, it is very much situational. 9 times out of 10, I don't think people would. I don't honestly think that they would step up and say anything. I know I've been in that situation and I didn't because I felt it wasn't my place. And if it's a 2-parent household and you don't see the other parent raise a voice of concern or anything like that, you assume this is normal. This is how it flies in their household. I don't think we should be like that anymore. I don't think we as a society should be like that. I believe while we're screaming and hollering for accountability from our elected officials, and we're screaming and hollering for accountability from, police officers and doctors and everyone else, we should hold ourselves accountable. We should hold our friends accountable. The people that we choose to associate with should also be held accountable for how they behave. If you're having a party and someone gets out of hand, and they're not willing to chill out, you'll throw them the hell out. Well, it's at your house. You feel you have more of a right at that point. But you sometimes have to be the advocate for those who can't advocate for themselves. Now, maybe the way you were raised, that's fine. That's how you were raised. But I've come to realize, not only in myself, but in my social circle, that some of us were raised in a way that isn't necessarily right. I don't think that it's right to teach little girls that just because a boy is picking on you, that means he likes you. I think that's a dangerous mindset to instill and a dangerous precedent to set. I think that little boys should be taught to express themselves better. Express their emotions, to be emotional. I think little girls should be taught the exact same thing. This isn't like picking on one gender over another. But historically, it has predominantly been boys and men that have been the aggressor in a lot of situations. I believe we need to raise better people. We need to be better people. We need to get away from the mindset of, well, it didn't kill me, it's not going to hurt them. Because what you don't realize is that it did kill you. Maybe not the you are today, but it killed the you could have been without it. Now, me growing up, if I screwed up, I got beat with extension cords, wooden spoons, a hand. I got punched in the mouth. I got my hair pulled and dragged through stores that way. I had all manner of very questionable shit nowadays done to me. I was a child of the 80s. They spare the rod, spoil the child was still pretty fashionable. I turned into a decent human being, don't get me wrong. I made a lot of mistakes along the way that I might not have otherwise made. Just because I was raised that way doesn't mean that it was right. And it doesn't mean that it's how another child should be raised. Society changes. Times change. Mindsets need to change. We need to start holding our fellow man accountable for their actions. If you see a child get smacked in public, I don't believe that physical violence should be necessary, and you sure as fuck shouldn't be doing physical violence to your children in public. You are a grown-ass person who has lost the battle so badly that you are resorting to hitting someone who is 3 times smaller than you are. Think about that. And you might say, well, I know how to control myself. Do you? Do you really? Because if you knew how to control yourself, I doubt it would have devolved into you hitting your child. We also need to watch the way that we speak to our children. We really should watch the way that we speak to each other. But we definitely need to watch how we speak to our children. Because what a child hears is what a child knows. So if you go around calling them a piece of shit every time they screw up, or they're a fucking idiot, or, anything that you could think of, that's what they end up hearing, and that's what they end up believing. My whole life I was told I would never amount to anything. Nobody would love me, nobody would care about me. I was a loser, and that I would never make any kind of contribution to society. And I believed that for a very long time. I believed that I was a worthless piece of shit, and that nothing I did mattered to anybody because I didn't matter to anybody. And I'll be honest with you, I still struggle with that to this day. There are days where I feel the exact same way. That I'm worthless. Nobody cares. Even this radio show is a constant source of frustration for me at times. Because I wish it was doing better than what it is. I wish that the 200 plus friends that I have on my friends list, that even if they weren't interested in listening, would at least share. There are almost 300 people that like the Facebook page. They don't interact. That's fine. I know that we're still under a year old, despite the 14 years in broadcasting that I have. There were enough years where I wasn't on the air that a lot of people forgot who I was, or a lot of people, that I used to know don't take me seriously now because I disappeared on them. I get that. The Odd Pod is not even a year old yet. It will be in September. And it takes a good 5 years to get any kind of traction. Sometimes I'm impatient, and I'd like to see some of that now. And please don't take this as me chastising anybody or begging you to share. I would like it if you shared. And if you can't share, I'd like it if you bought merch. And if you can't buy merch, I'd like it if you interacted. There's a lot of things that I would like to see done. But it doesn't keep me from still being here. I sit down every week and I make sure that there is a show prepared to go. And sometimes that show has to change on the fly. Yeah, I know. I know it's very hard to get the public interested. Mr. Brown is in the chat now. Hello, Mr. Brown. But yeah, and it's the problem for every small business, really, is to get that out there. Which is why I like that I have the ability to do shows like this. Because who knows, later on down the line, if things get to be too popular and whatnot, you know, I might not be able to sit down like this and talk about the things that are bothering me. But back to our main topic before we go to our next break. We, as people, need to do better by each other. And it's going to be a theme for the rest of tonight. But again, if you know someone, if you yourself are stuck in an abusive situation where you feel in danger here in the United States, 1-800-799-7233, or you can go to the hotline.org, and that is the National Domestic Violence Hotline website. There are even ways they have, if you feel you're being tracked online, they can offer you help with that. And there's also a handy-dandy fast exit button where if you're looking up resources and whatnot and you feel that someone is coming that you don't want to see what you're doing, you can hit the exit button and it takes you right back to Google. Also, most 911 lines understand that if you call and you order a pizza, that you're asking for help. That is a common thing where someone who feels that their life is in danger calls 911 and orders a pizza. Our next songs for this coming break are Rev Theory, Lords of Altamont, and Kingdom Falls. You're going to get Remember Me, I Said Hey, and This Is Hell. As I stated earlier, I grew up in an abusive household. It was very detrimental to the foundation of me. And it took me a lot of years to work at unfucking that foundation, essentially. I'm most days proud of who I've become. But I am always aware that there are still things that I could do to be better. Every morning, every day I get up, I'm trying to be a better person than I was the day before. I am in competition with nobody other than myself. I don't look at others and, oh, I wish I had that, or, oh, I'm jealous that they get to do that. I'm genuinely happy for the windfalls of others, and I don't often celebrate the failures of others. More often than not, if I care about you, I'm going to step in and try to help give you some tricks to not fail again. We, again, need to take care of each other.
Thanks for checking out the Odd Pod. If you want to hear the whole show, consider becoming a patron of our Patreon. Head to patreon.com/The Odd Pod. We're also all over social media like an STI that won't wash off. Head to tapdetroit.com/The Odd Pod to follow us today. We're already following you, and you forgot to buy milk.